This is you. You were born without a country. Or at least, that's what the documents say. A child of a displaced family, raised in a refugee resettlement camp on the outskirts of Haifa, where the tents leak in winter and the sand burns your feet in summer. Your parents didn't disappear. They were simply erased, 2 names on a list of casualties in a border skirmish that nobody in power bothered to investigate. You were 4 years old. You don't have a grave to visit. Your only connection to them is a single object, your father's military compass, a scratched brass disc that always points north. You carry it everywhere, spinning it in your palm when the world stops making sense, because at least something in the universe still knows where it's going. That compass becomes an obsession. You spend your childhood sneaking into the old British-era military library 3 blocks from the camp, hiding between the shelves for hours, consuming maps, geopolitical history, and intelligence reports that you aren't supposed to be able to read. By the age of 13, you speak 4 languages: Hebrew, Arabic, French, and English. Because you understood that in a world where you have no name and no nation, information is the only currency that can't be taken from you. One afternoon, fate hands you an opportunity disguised as an accident. You're 16, barefoot, crouched behind a market stall, translating an overheard conversation between 2 foreign military men for a street vendor who pays you in flatbread. You don't know that a man in a gray linen suit standing 20 meters away has been watching you for 11 minutes. His name is Reuven. He says nothing to you that day, but the next morning, there's a business card wedged under the door of your tent. Just an address and a time. No name. No explanation. Any rational person would throw it away. You go. The address leads to a nondescript building near the port. No signs. A receptionist who doesn't make eye contact. A room with a single table, 2 chairs, and a one-way mirror. Reuven walks in and sits across from you. He places your file on the table, which is absurd because you don't officially exist. He tells you that they've been watching you for 2 years. He tells you that your country needs people who can disappear inside a crowd, who can think in the grammar of an enemy and still come home at night. He tells you that the work is invisible, that if you succeed, no one will ever know your name. And if you fail, they won't claim yours either. You spin the compass in your palm. You say yes. The training facility isn't what you imagine. No firing ranges or obstacle courses hidden in the desert. It's a suburban house in Tel Aviv with clean curtains and a garden. The violence here is invisible. It's psychological. On the first day, they don't give you a weapon. They give you a persona, a name, a backstory, a set of memories that aren't yours. A Lebanese merchant's son named Karim who grew up in Beirut and loves football and has a scar on his left knee from a bicycle accident at age 9. You spend 3 months becoming Karim. You eat his food. You dream his dreams. You practice his walk in front of a mirror until your own reflection stops feeling familiar. Your instructors are patient, precise, and completely without mercy. There is a woman they call the architect. She has silver hair and the posture of someone who has never doubted a single decision in her life. She tells you on day 1 that the most dangerous agent isn't the one who can't pull a trigger. It's the one who can't have a normal conversation at a dinner party while knowing that the man pouring the wine has ordered the deaths of civilians. She says your greatest weapon will never be a firearm. It will be the ability to make someone trust you completely, and then use that trust with surgical precision. You train in surveillance. How to follow a target through a crowded souk for 4 hours without triggering their instincts. How to pass a message without speaking. How to build a cover identity that holds under direct interrogation. How to read micro-expressions, the half-second flicker of fear behind a controlled smile. You also train in the harder things. Hand-to-hand combat taught not as violence but as geometry. How to neutralize a threat silently in a confined space. How to escape a restrained position. How to disappear from a moving vehicle. How to survive 48 hours without food, water, or sleep while maintaining complete operational clarity. What they don't teach you is how to feel nothing. That part, you have to figure out alone. By month 4, your cell takes shape. There are 4 of you. First, there's Dahlia, your communications anchor and the person who will be your only voice in the field. She can encrypt a message in 3 different methods and relay it through satellite, courier, or dead drop depending on the threat level. She never raises her voice and is the calmest human being you have ever encountered. Then there's Yossi, a former academic who speaks Arabic with a Damascus accent so flawless that even native speakers have never questioned it. He's your analytical counterpart, the one who reads the room while you read the target. And finally there's Ori, a specialist in technical operations, capable of bypassing electronic security systems, installing listening devices, and constructing communication intercepts from components that look like ordinary objects. He has a nervous energy that makes new people uncomfortable until they realize that his restlessness is simply what genius looks like in motion. And then there's you, the one without a country, the one who speaks everyone's language and belongs to none. They give you a field designation, North Star, because you always find your way back. Your first deployment comes 18 months after that business card. The year is 1973. The geopolitical temperature is reaching a point that intelligence analysts describe in careful, measured language as extremely volatile. In the field, people use a simpler word, war. Your mission is not to fire a weapon. Your mission is to listen. You cross into Syria using the Kareem cover and spend 3 weeks embedded in Damascus, working as a merchant's assistant in the old city. The narrow streets smell of cardamom and diesel. You drink coffee with men whose names you report every evening in coded signals through Dahlia. You attend a cultural gathering where a mid-level Syrian military advisor speaks a little too freely after his third glass of arak. You remember every word. You reconstruct the conversation verbatim in your written report. 2 of those details, cross-referenced with satellite imagery and other field reports, will later help analysts piece together the early movements of what will become a coordinated multi-front military operation. You don't know that when you walk out of Damascus 3 weeks later with your compass in your pocket and your Kareem cover intact, the information you carried will be among the intelligence that determines how Israel responds to the surprise offensive on Yom Kippur. You return to the facility. The architect reads your report without changing her expression. Then she nods once and says, again. Over the next year, the missions escalate in complexity and risk. Each one strips another layer of ordinary life from you. In Beirut, you spend 6 weeks befriending the assistant of a logistics coordinator linked to weapons transfers. You learn his routines, his habits, his fears. You share meals with him. He tells you about his daughter, who wants to study medicine. He shows you her photograph. You feel the weight of the photograph in your hands, knowing that what you are doing will collapse his world, and you do it anyway, because the alternative is a shipment of weapons that will collapse other worlds instead. This is the arithmetic of intelligence work. The architect never said it would feel clean. In Cyprus, you coordinate with Ori to intercept an encrypted communication channel being used by a procurement network. Ori installs a passive relay inside a telephone exchange disguised as a fuse box component. It runs for 4 months before it's discovered. By then, the intelligence extracted has disrupted 3 separate logistics operations and led to the identification of 14 key operatives. In Jordan, a meeting goes wrong. You're sitting in a cafe when you notice a man across the street who photographed you 18 seconds ago with a concealed camera. Your pulse doesn't spike. The architect's training holds. You finish your coffee, pay the bill, exchange a coded phrase with the waiter that triggers a backup extraction protocol, and walk out the side entrance. You're across the border on a forged transit document within 4 hours. Yossi, who was covering you from a position 2 blocks away, never even had to break his cover. You don't sleep that night. From the quiet, suffocating recognition that you cannot remember what it feels like to have a conversation without calculating its operational value. The mission that changes everything comes in the spring of 1974. A high-value intelligence target, a man referred to in your briefing documents only as the cartographer, has been moving between Beirut and Cairo for 3 months. He is believed to be coordinating the reconstruction of a regional intelligence network that was dismantled during the war. He is careful, experienced, and deeply familiar with operational security. 3 previous attempts by other agencies to get close to him have failed. The architect assigns you the lead. Yossi will be your support. Dahlia will manage communications from a safe location. Ori will handle technical access. You spend 6 weeks building the approach. The cartographer's single vulnerability, uncovered through painstaking research, is his love of classical music. He attends concerts when he's in Beirut. You embed yourself in the cultural scene of the city's western neighborhoods. You start attending the same small concert venue. You do not approach him. You let the proximity build naturally, 2 men who seem to share similar taste, occasionally occupying seats in the same row. On the 3rd occasion, he speaks to you first. He asks what you thought of the violinist's interpretation of a particular passage. You have a genuine conversation about music that lasts 11 minutes. He gives you a name, not his real one, but a name. Over the following weeks, the relationship develops exactly as you engineer it, while never losing what feels real. Because that is the most disturbing skill the architect gave you, the ability to manufacture genuine warmth. The friendship is constructed, but the conversations are real. The cartographer is intelligent, self-aware, and beneath the layers of operational caution, he is lonely in the specific way that people who have spent decades in secret work become lonely. You recognize it because you feel it too. 3 months in, you have enough intelligence on the network structure, its nodes, its communication protocols, and its funding channels to dismantle it comprehensively. You transmit everything through Dahlia. The operation is considered a significant success. Your handlers are pleased. What happens next is not in the mission brief. One evening, the cartographer invites you for a walk. He's been unusually quiet all week. You sense the shift. An experienced intelligence operative develops a kind of peripheral awareness for when a situation is changing in ways that aren't visible yet, like pressure dropping before a storm. You walk with him along the waterfront. He stops at a railing above the sea and looks out at the lights on the water. Then he tells you his real name. Deliberately, he looks at you directly, with the calm of someone who has already made a decision and is now simply executing it, and he says his name, his actual name. Then he tells you that he knows who you are. Not your cover name. He says North Star. Time stops. He tells you he made you 6 weeks ago. That he's been conducting a parallel operation of his own since then, studying you the same way you've been studying him. He says that your tradecraft is exceptional. That your cover is nearly flawless. Nearly. There was a single moment, he says, a micro-expression that lasted less than 1/3 of a second when he mentioned a specific location, that told him everything. Your training says there are 2 options in this scenario. Abort and extract. Or neutralize the threat. But then he continues talking. He tells you that he hasn't reported what he knows to anyone. That he's been asking himself for 6 weeks why he hasn't. And the answer, he says, is that he is tired. He's tired in the way that only people who have spent their lives on opposite sides of the same kind of loneliness understand. He pulls out a compass from his coat pocket. Not brass, steel, but the same principle. Something that always points somewhere. He asks you one question. He asks, what are you going home to? You open your mouth. The answer your cover identity would give is ready, practiced, specific. But for the first time in years, what comes out is the truth. You tell him about the camp, about the tent with the leaking roof, about a brass compass and 2 parents who were erased from a record no one checks anymore, about 4 languages and a borrowed library and a business card wedged under a door. He listens without interrupting. When you finish, he says that he will not expose you. That as of tonight, he is withdrawing from his operational role entirely, not to any authority. Simply gone. He's made arrangements. He's leaving. He shows you a one-way ticket to a city that has nothing to do with any intelligence service from any nation on Earth. He tells you that the network information you have is accurate, that you will dismantle something real and significant with it. But he asks that you use what he's about to tell you, additional details, gaps in what your own intelligence captured, to do it in a way that minimizes harm to the lower-level operatives who are, as he puts it, simply people trying to survive a world they didn't design. Then he gives you the information, all of it, freely. You stand at the railing above the Mediterranean, holding 2 compasses. His steel one, which he pressed into your hand before walking away, and your father's brass one, which has lived in your pocket your entire life. He disappears into the city. You never see him again. You return to the facility. You submit your report. It is exactly accurate in every operational detail. It is completely silent on the conversation at the waterfront. The architect reads it. She nods once. The operation is executed. The network is dismantled with a precision that your handlers describe as exceptional, and with a collateral impact that, by the standards of such operations, is considered remarkably contained. They ask how. You tell them the intelligence was simply very good. Months later, you're sitting in a debriefing room after your final mission rotation. The architect is across the table. The debrief ends. There's a pause. She looks at you the way she sometimes does when she's decided to say something that isn't in any protocol document. She tells you that in 30 years of this work, she has known very few people who came back from the field still carrying something human. She doesn't ask what happened in Beirut. She already knows, the way people who have spent decades reading people always know, that there is a version of the report and then there is what actually occurred. She slides a single document across the table. An official record. Your name, your real name, registered for the first time in a state archive. Citizenship. Documented existence. A country, on paper, finally. You pick it up. You read your own name like it belongs to a stranger. Then slowly, like something thawing, it starts to feel like yours. You reach into your pocket. You hold the brass compass, the steel one, both of them balanced in your palm. One pointing north, one pointing north. Two needles from opposite sides of a conflict, aimed at the same direction. You were built to disappear. Instead, for the first time in your life, you exist.